That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about In a Violent Nature, the directorial debut of Chris Nash, which had its premiere at the 2024 Sundance Film Festival before IFC Films has opened it in limited theatrical release as of May 31st, 2024.
And then it will be on Shudder later this year, apparently.
Oh, yes.
Directorial debut. What is this movie about? When a locket is removed from a collapsed fire tower in the woods that entombs the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit spurred on by a horrific 60-year-old crime, his body is resurrected and becomes hellbent on retrieving it. What's your pull quote?
Superficially unique, considering it's basically an art house slasher flick merely disarticulated from genre embellishments, In a Violent Nature might satisfy gorehounds who also love lethargic summertime walks in the woods.
Mine, In a Violent Nature, has a novel-ish idea that runs out of steam well before the tedious conclusion. There are many things I liked about this movie, but overall I left the theater disappointed.
I was a bit bored. It's clearly, this is directed by somebody who is in love with 80s slasher flicks, particularly the Friday the 13th series, among others. But even in those films, the people that get killed usually aren't that memorable to begin with. But I think we're missing out on something integral there, because I was really just waiting for all these people to die so it would be done.
Well, the premise I read is basically the movie Johnny is the killer, and he looks like Jason Voorhees without the hockey mask on, and he wants revenge because he's been held like in the depths of hell in this apparently the area he's buried in is like the site of where this kid was killed, which we'll get to how he came to be. But a necklace his mother gave him seems to be what's keeping him in the ground. And it's not very well, hidden or secured.
No.
It's out in the wide open. It made me think of that movie we reviewed, The Dry 2.
With Eric Banya.
Where there's that serial killer shed. I feel like that shed was more difficult to find than Johnny's shed in this movie.
Well, the removal of that's a trope from all The Thing That Couldn't Die, Black Sunday, the Mario Bava classic, Ernest Scared Stupid. I think those are all films that kind of use that trope.
Anyway, the person who steals the necklace is this guy who's part of this group of college-age people who are just out in the woods for a camping trip in a cabin.
Summertime sadness, baby.
Yeah, so like you said, Johnny's just plucking everyone off one by one. And he does, and there's one lady left. What do they call the final girl?
The final girl, Kris is her name.
Kris, and she doesn't die at the end. That's it. We'll get to the history, but I figured we would start with, because I think this is this movie's unrated, so I guess because it's super violent.
Is it?
And we got a lot of comments asking to review it, and people were talking about the kills, among other things. So I'm just going to run through the kills. The first person we see get killed is this old grouchy-ass man, and he gets his head smashed in and his arm removed, but we don't see Johnny do it. We just see the aftermath.
He has a hat and his own gold necklace that says #1 Mother F word.
So Johnny might have been confused killing this man because he thought the guy had his mama's necklace. I don't know.
It's not that well spelled out because he stumbles onto his property first, and then it just so happens he had
Although it doesn't seem like Johnny has any rhyme or reason to what he's doing. Well, maybe that's not true, actually. But anyway, the next kill is... There's a campfire scene where the lore of Johnny is explained, and the guy who's telling the story, he ends up going out with headphones on to go meet some ladies he met at a gas station. And Johnny catches his ass and basically saws his head in half. Then we get two of the ladies are, I guess, DL lesbians. I don't know, but they're by the lake. One thinks they're going to do yoga. The other wants to go swimming, and she's trying to mac on the other one. The one who goes swimming, Johnny drowns her, but we don't see it. We just see her body get pulled under, and then she floats to the top. But the other lady, the one who wanted to do yoga, that's the most violent kill I think I've seen in a long... I can't think of one more gruesome.
Since probably maybe the first Terrifier in recent memory.
Being split down the middle, maybe. But Johnny, that lady, the yoga lady, he like punches through her abdomen and then takes a hook, attaches it to her head, and pulls that lady's head like this through her abdomen. So the final product looks like a pretzel.
I have my thoughts about why that scene also doesn't work at all, but...
Well, we'll get to it then. Then two of the guys are like just hanging out at the cabin, and they realize that weird things are going on. They want to leave, and Johnny kills one by hitting him in the back of the head with an axe. The other guy is the guy who stole the necklace. He gets smashed in the head with a boulder. So we see this Johnny takes a big rock and hits the guy in the head, and we see the guy's head explode. Mm-hmm. Then the park ranger, whose father is the one responsible for originally like burying Johnny, and then this actual ranger guy who's like a younger guy, the son, he's responsible because apparently Johnny rose from the dead like 10 years ago. So this is not the first time he's done this. And this ranger is the one who put Johnny back in the ground.
I mean, I think I put up a sign up that says, don't touch
this damn necklace. We need to talk about that. But anyway, Johnny kills the ranger by taking a wood splitter and basically decapitating him.
We need to talk about that scene. But
yeah, and then the final kill is, because there are two left, the final girl and her companion. And for some reason, Johnny, we need to talk about this scene too, but Johnny kills this guy by taking an axe and like pulverizing his head for like 2-3 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's really excessive in a way that was effective, I guess, because it's like, wow, he's really... I think him killing that guy that way seemed like misguided. Like he should have killed the guy. I feel like the park ranger deserves the worst death because he had already killed Johnny once before. And I think the guy who stole the necklace deserved the second worst death. So I thought it was odd that the last guy gets the most prolonged death.
But that's like talking about Michael Myers kills, which have no rhyme or reason for the level of vitriol that he seems to have for some of his victims.
Sure.
Like, it just is.
So there are 8 kills. Well, I'm just going to go through my notes and then we can fill in the blanks. So the opening of the film is someone stealing the necklace. Johnny rises from the dead. And then what's unique about this film and what everyone's talking about, which I should have mentioned at the beginning, is that it's shot uniquely because, like, the first half of the film, the camera's focused on Johnny. It's not from his point of view, but it's like we're watching Johnny move throughout the environment instead of focusing on everyone around
the
him.
Victims.
Right. So that felt unique. So some positives are the cinematography.
Mm-hmm. Pierce Dirks, who worked as an additional cinematographer on Mandy, the 2018 Nicolas Cage flick, which is quite good.
I think it looks beautiful, and the cinematography flips between being like very glossy modern to sort of having a matte finish to then being grainy like 80s style. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that's on purpose. I liked it. In fact, I kind of wish it were all grainy. We'll get to what I thought would have been better. But the ranger, we see in the opening of the film after Johnny rises from the dead that he's arguing with this old man, talking about you need to stop leaving all these animal traps because you know there are young people who come out here and camp and they're going to get hurt because of you. Mm-hmm. And the guy's being real like, I know my rights, this is my property, blah, blah, blah. And then he tells the ranger to kick rocks. So that's when Johnny shows up, sees the necklace, and then assaults the ranger. So I thought that opening was really interesting because we get quite a bit of time spent with Johnny walking. Mm-hmm. So as the audience, we're just watching this hulking Jason Voorhees looking thing walk through the woods.
This could have been called Johnny, Walker.
Oh, yeah, it could have been, actually. Okay, the campfire story. So this is where we get the lore of Johnny, and it's shot like...
in a continual kind of 180.
360. Around the campfire.
You almost get dizzy watching it.
Yes, but I thought it was effective.
It is because it's distracting us from the really bad acting that's happening in that scene.
Okay, well, let's just talk about that because while I really like the cinematography and I think that it's sort of a fresh take on a very familiar storyline, which is like your basic slasher film, I think that like the writing, not only the dialogue but the story and the acting felt real crunchy.
Because it is, yeah.
And I could see someone trying to explain like, oh, well, they're trying to mimic like 80s slasher. But then this movie's not set in the 80s. It's set in modern time. And the characters are acting all woke, and because there's a conversation about how to refer to someone who has like developmental delay
and who this that could have been. I don't know. I didn't read about the making of the film, but maybe this was improv and like outside of the core exposition of the mythos of Johnny. Maybe the rest of it was kind of like, just having these actors improvise, and maybe because sometimes that can sound pretty wooden, but
the dialogue and the acting didn't work for me. And then the lore of Johnny feels a little too complicated, because we find out that 60 years prior, Johnny's dad was kind of like a dick in the area because he owned a bunch of supplies and was stingy with them. So the townspeople didn't like him.
A dick in the area. I've had that problem myself.
And he, like the townspeople, to get back at the dad, played a prank on Johnny by luring him up to a fire tower with a bag of toys. And then Johnny falls off the fire tower, instantly dies. And then the people responsible put a fire mask on him to make it seem like he was up there fooling around. And then the officials play it off like it was an accident. But then Johnny's dad tries to get revenge, and the townspeople kill him. So then the lore is that Johnny is haunting. Although I feel like it would make more sense for Johnny's dad to haunt everyone, but whatever. I thought that story was... I think the combination of the weak acting, the not great dialogue, and then the audio for the guy telling... I don't know if this was the same for you, but I had a really hard time understanding what he was saying. So that wasn't my favorite.
And then when we get to the park ranger towards the end, who confirms that only some of that lore is true, it's like, okay, well,
which part?
Which part?
He doesn't.
Are you gonna make this make sense for us or not?
No, he doesn't.
And which is fine. I don't need it to, but it'd be helpful to remain compelling.
I hate to do this because I try to avoid curly girls, but there's a worst hair nominee, the character of Kris.
Andrea Pavlovic.
She's a beautiful lady. I looked up her IMDb, and all of her pictures on IMDb, her hair is beautiful. She has beautiful curly hair. But for some reason in this movie, I just hated her hair. It's like shoulder length. It's really thin. You can see through it.
It's like Mink Stole and Serial Mom.
Yes.
Dottie Hinkle.
And it's cut one length. So then it like kind of has like that bell shape, but then it's thin so you can see through it. And then it almost looks like when girls are in a hurry and they'll like slick back their hair into a bun and they'll just put gel on the top, but the back is dry because it's in a bun. When they take the bun out, the top is real flat, but then the rest of it's all frazzled. So it looked like baby's breath. It looked like she combed the top of her head with a chicken bone, and then she had like baby's breath behind it. And I just thought, I hated how it looked. And I don't understand why it makes sense for this woman to be out in the woods, because then it was driving me crazy that she always had like a little leaf in her hair. So I kept wanting to be like this to her.
By the way, baby's breath is really ugly flower, I think.
Well, I meant like how they put it in floral arrangements.
I know, it's ugly. It looks ugly and dry.
Oh, wow. Well, that's why I was trying to say baby's breath and not ugly and dry.
Oh, baby breath. That's the euphemism.
Yes. So then I don't understand why they gave her that hairdo, even for continuity. Wouldn't it have been easier to just put her in a cute bun?
I don't know.
I just hated that style.
This is also a young woman that's dating a man that stole a locket off some branch in the woods to give it to her.
And gave it to her.
No, thank you.
So Johnny ends up making his way to like the ranger state. Okay, can we talk about, they describe Johnny as being like mentally handicapped, developmentally delayed, and also deformed. But Johnny seems very smart. He can read, and he seems to like have pretty solid problem solving skills, and he's like manipulative.
Yeah.
Because he sets traps to get people to come out. So he seems quite smart. And then when we do see him once without his mask, like in clear sunlight, without his mask, we see his face full on once. And I didn't think he looked deformed. He reminded me of that British actor Matt Lucas, if he were like buried underground, because he has like fish eyes and scars.
And his lips were rotted away.
But other than that, he looks like a normal person.
He was giving, what's that character from the Goonies?
I mean, his teeth are jacked.
Is it Sloth? What's that character in the Goonies?
Hey, you guys.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't look that bad. He looks like a normal person who's been through it.
Sure.
Also, I'm confused. Like, just like Jason Voorhees, they died when they were little. So how'd they get so damn big?
And they're big.
Like real big and strong.
You could absorb nutrients as a member of the undead from the earth. Like,
Speaking of strong, I felt like Johnny's strength was inconsistent because at one point we see him carrying a man my size, like he's carrying his Hermes bag. And then other times he picks an equally sized man up and he's like, ugh, and like dragging him. And then one time when the Rangers, oh my God, the gun scene, when the Rangers like trying to like get a gun away from Johnny, it seems like Johnny can't like match this, like he's matching strength with Johnny.
maybe it's a problem with his back and spinal cord and the fusion. He can't turn.
Okay, at the point where the final two characters are able to escape from Johnny, they make their way to the ranger station, and then the ranger immediately goes, "Do you know what you've done? You took the necklace? Like, that's the only thing that's keeping him buried underground, like you said. Why isn't there a sign? Why isn't this area secured with cameras? Like, that no one touches damn necklace. It's just out there for anyone to just grab."
Yeah. And
Like pulling a lemon from your neighbor's tree. That's how it was easier for them to grab that necklace. And immediately Johnny comes up from the pits of hell. So the ranger is reprimanding the two when all of a sudden Kris goes, "There he is."
I mean, even Eve was said, "Don't touch those damn apples, girl."
So then the ranger shoots Johnny. We've already seen Johnny be shot once and it didn't kill him. It just incapacitates him for like a minute and then he gets back up. So the ranger shoots him. And then he explains, "I've done this before. We don't have much time. He's going to get back up." So he tells the guy, like the one remaining guy, "Go grab some chains." The guy grabs chains. Now they are standing way too close to Johnny's body, pointing the gun. And the ranger says, "Wrap his feet up with the chains." And the guy goes, "I can't do it." "Okay, then throw the shit down. I'm going to give you the gun."
On the count of three.
On the count of three. So stupid. And they go 1, 2, and then Johnny grabs the gun. And then incapacitates the ranger, shoots the ATV so now they can't get away. Mm-hmm. It's like, that was so dumb.
Well, because it's like, oh, and y'all deserve to die. Like, what's wrong with you? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that just, it's kind of like my problem with the very graphic death of the lesbian, which she's at.
Oh, yes.
She's stuck between Johnny and a precipice.
And a cliff, yeah.
It's a cliff, but there's a slant and water at the end. Like, she just stops and lets herself be stabbed. I don't know.
I was surprised that she didn't just tumble down.
I would have.
She just stood there and let that thing grab her ass. But
do you want to live? I guess not. I don't know.
Well, that kill was, while the actual kill was impressive, the circumstances were ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then, okay, this is where the movie takes a turn for me. The first hour was compelling, but then when Johnny decides to kill the park ranger, he does so by starting a wood splitter. And I've never
seen a wood splitter.
I've never seen a wood splitter, but I would imagine that they can't all be that slow. But Johnny walks over, starts the wood splitter, knowing that the other two have absconded on foot.
And he's paralyzed the ranger.
The ranger can't move, so Johnny slowly goes and starts the wood splitter, walks back, drags the ranger back.
Puts a hook in him, drags him. Mm-hmm.
And then the wood splitter is so slow, and then Johnny tests it out on the ranger's arm, so he cuts off his arm.
Technically, you test it on a piece of wood.
Oh, that's true. We have to watch the wood be split very slowly. Then we watch the arm be cut off very slowly. Then we watch the ranger's head get decapitated very slowly. I thought that was unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. The wood splitter goes through the block of wood like zoom, and then through the neck it's like it's stuck. It's like
struggling. It just didn't make sense, and it just felt tedious. Then we get the scene with Kris, because at this point her little friend, his head's been pulverized.
And at that point, I couldn't even remember which male was still alive.
Couldn't remember the male, and then his plan is we're gonna light him on. Whatever his plan was, he runs up to Johnny and goes, "Hey, you, stop!" And what does Johnny do? Turn around and kill his ass. That was the dumbest. Like, he deserved to get killed. So now Kris is running. Mm-hmm. And just like how you didn't remember the final guy, I think it's so weird that Kris is the final girl because up to that point, I wasn't even thinking about her.
Well, I wasn't thinking
because most
of any
final
of them.
girls are kind of like the main character.
Just none of them.
Just none of them really stood out. Especially the only if it weren't for that awful ass hairdo, I wouldn't have remembered her. Or the fact that she reminded me of if you mix. I thought Kris looked like if you mixed a young Jamie Lee Curtis with Solange.
Oh my god!
But anyway, she's pretty.
Isn't that Jennifer Beals?
Or her. But then we see Kris run all night in the woods. And then in the morning we see she's like woken up to like a wood spear has gone through her leg somehow.
But she's panicking the whole time because she keeps hearing what she thinks are the noises of Johnny following her.
Which I thought was effective.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh my God, is it is this like supernatural in the sense that she's stuck in the woods or is it just in her mind? So that was effective. But then she gets to the main road and a lady picks her up. Mm-hmm. Child, this was the most talkingest lady you have ever seen. This lady picks her up in this red pickup truck and just for 10 minutes straight, just is talking, telling her that my brother was a ranger and he got hurt in the mauled by a bear and is telling this long ass story. And it's so ridiculous that I was 100% sure that what we're going to find out is that this lady is one of the yokels who knows about Johnny. Because the ranger acts like everybody knows about Johnny. Everybody knows don't touch that necklace. I thought that lady was going to try to trick Kris into being taken back
to Johnny.
Kind
of like the end of Walter Hill's Southern Comfort or something.
But no, she really was just talking. And then at the very end, she pulls the truck over because Kris is starting to get weak. And then the lady goes, oh, I need to stop the bleeding in your leg. But prior to that, she acts like she doesn't realize her leg is hurt because she keeps saying are you okay? She doesn't realize her leg's bleeding. So when she says, I need to stop the bleeding, I thought, oh, this is the point where she's going to set it up so Johnny can get her. Mm-hmm. Even though they've been driving for miles. Yes. Don't know how Johnny would have caught up. And then the way it's shot, it's like Kris is paranoid looking into the woods and the lady's acting really slow. And then we find out, no, the lady really was trying to make a tourniquet. And then the film ends. She's going to make it to safety.
Uh-huh. Well, and then we see she had placed the necklace on the gasoline can, and it has been retrieved by Johnny.
The film could have ended 15 minutes earlier with her putting the necklace on the gasoline tank and running away.
And with maybe a Texas Chainsaw feeling of that girl screaming in the truck bed.
But yeah, I just think the final 30 minutes felt so tedious. I almost feel like whoever wrote the story had a fresh idea with we're basically gonna do Friday the 13th part 2 or 3, but except shoot it from looking at the killer, and then they just ran out of steam.
My favorite part of the whole Friday the 13th franchise is in the first film. It's Betsy Palmer. It's Mrs. Voorhees. There's nothing that tops that performance.
I think what would have made this better is if it would have been shot entirely focusing on the killer. This one only does it 50%. Halfway through they kind of give up, and then periodically we revisit
and then we go to Chris's
POV.
Yeah.
Well, not her POV, just watching her move. Then I also think the cinema style of it, I kind of wish it would have been shot in that grainy 80s way, but then knowing it's set in modern time. And I kind of wish because then of course they do the whole thing where their phones don't have reception. I kind of wish their phones did. I don't think their phones didn't need to not have reception because they're getting plucked off one by one separately. Mm-hmm. So I kind of wish their phones did work, and so they were talking to each other.
And maybe they had an ulterior motive for not calling the police, as in maybe they're not supposed to be where they're supposed to be or something.
Something like that. And then it doesn't matter, in the final 30 minutes, if they do call the police, it's going to take forever for them to get there because they're out in the middle of nowhere. The ranger's dead. And what does Johnny care? He's a demon from hell, so call the police. It felt gimmicky to me by the end, and I was frustrated.
Yes, because it's one note. It starts one place and never goes anywhere else.
But if it sounds interesting to you, if it weren't for all the people asking us to review it, I probably wouldn't have gone to see it. But if it sounds interesting, go to the theater.
I mean,
it will be on Shudder, so you can watch it there.
Yeah, I think the director Chris Nash certainly has a talented eye for some things. Previously, although this is his debut, he contributed to the ABCs of Death 2. He did Z is for Zygote, the last segment of that, Omnibus. And he also worked on the creature effects for that film Psycho Gorman. Which I kind of
we reviewed that.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of fun as well. So I think clearly, I think for a first film, has some interesting ideas. I
would watch this person's next film.
For sure.
What would you give in A Violent Nature?
I think I'm being kind of nice with 2.5. Just like for my personal taste, but...
I'll say it's 2.5 out of 5. It's okay. Anything else?
No.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.